Right, hello everyone. we uh, we started learning about the Holy Temple, and let's continue. Let's continue because it says that anyone who learns the laws of the Holy Temple, it's as though that he's building the Holy Temple. So, and look, if you look around and you try to find pictures that sort of illustrate what's going on with this with the Holy Temple, it's pretty hard to find because I mean, there's a lot of misinformation going on with it. Just really quite incredible misinformation, and there's also some really bad pictures. Let me find it. Oh, some really inaccurate pictures. So let's just take a small example. Here's one of the ark. Now, this is accurate, more or less. The ark, the other pictures they of all the dimensions that are wrong. That's the holy ark. The poles are on the short side. Oh, that's pretty good. It's the same height. One second. It's supposed to, that's right. It's 2.5 wide, long, 2.5 long, 2.5 amas. An amma is about 1.5 foot. And so it's 2.5 amas long, and it's 1.5 amas wide, and it's 1.5 amas high. So this is not right. This picture is not right. It's supposed to be as high as it is wide. Okay, anyway, so that's also the same thing with the let's see if we can get a picture of it over here. Oh, here we go. See, now that according to all opinions, the menorah was straight. There's no opinion of all the Jewish opinions that say that it was round. None whatsoever. There's one opinion with Ibn Ezra where it sort of goes in a spiral, whatever. But Rashi and Rambam, all of them say that it's supposed to be straight. Okay, but that's a sort of a minor thing, I guess. But on the other hand, all right. That's so that just gives you small examples of what's going on. Let's go over here one second. I got a picture. Where's this picture? Got the picture. Oh, no. Oh, here we go. All right. If you look from the top, this is in the first temple. If you look, and the second temple was pretty much the same thing. It was just a little bit bigger. If you got a top view, you're looking from the top view. This is a view of the temple. How was the second temple? Now, just one sort of what do you call it? A disclaimer. Let's start off this whole business. The Christians have a big problem with this holy temple business. Why? Because what was the holy temple? What's the whole idea of the holy temple? The holy temple was not a building designed to get you into heaven. In Judaism, in the whole 5 books of Moses, heaven and hell are not even mentioned. We believe that there's such a thing, but it's very unimportant. The purpose of the Holy Temple was to show how holy and precious this physical world is to God, and that this physical world is the main thing. And how important are the commandments? The temple was like the ideal commandment. There's a book which is called Sefer HaChinuch, and in it he explains the commandments from a sort of psychological point of view, right, what the commandments do. He says the main thing of the commandments is that you're doing the will of God. They also have a psychological effect. And according to that, the ideal commandment is the holy temple, because you went inside and all of your actions and all of your thoughts and all of your senses were permeated. You heard the music that was there. You smelled the incense that was there. The sounds what you saw the Kohanim going. He brought an offering that was cost money, etc. So the whole idea of the Holy Temple is how important this physical world is, to show that the point of life is not to go to heaven. That's not the good. There is such a thing, but it's not the point. The point of it is to be in this world, in this physical world. And in fact, all the souls are going to come back into this world. That's going to be after the third temple is built. The third temple is number one. Number two, the temple did not bring forgiveness. The temple did not bring forgiveness. The sacrifices that were there were only to help a person. If a person just brought a sacrifice and he didn't have the intention of changing his ways and regretting the past and having a resolution for the future, essentially declaring that God is the king and that I'm not the king, that God is, and admitting that your problems came from your own selfishness, then the sacrifices had no effect. Number one. Number two, sacrifices were only for accidental sins. The temple never had sacrifices for purposeful sins. If a person purposely stole, lied, cheated, raped, any of the sins of the Torah, if you did it on purpose, the temple did not even help you to do forgiveness. If you did a sin, which is called b'shogeg, you did it in called ignorance, then the temple helped you to regret, helped you to clean yourself off. The main thing of the temple is not to act like the non-Jews, not to be selfish, and to do the commandments. The main thing was the commandments. So come along the Christians and say you don't have to do the commandments anymore. The temple is now a person, and he forgives all sins. It's not that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But I mean, just like the Jewish people worship the golden calf right after they saw God and they heard God say not to do it at Mount Sinai. So it's pleasurable. It gives a certain security, a certain feeling of the meaning. Okay, I mean, God, in the Ram, Maimonides explains that the reason that God let Christianity succeed so greatly is because they spread out the ideas of the Torah, the commandments, that there is such a thing as the Torah, and that there is such a thing as commandments, even though they don't do it, and that there is such a thing as Mashiach, and there is such a thing as good and bad. There is such a thing as absolute good and bad. And that was spread out by them and also by Islam, these ideas. So everything that they took from the Torah is true, but everything that is not. And one of the things is that you don't need a holy temple anymore. We do need a holy temple, and Mashiach will build a holy temple. And by learning about it, we help build it, the third temple. Okay, so let's go. Here we have the third temple. That was a short sort of preface, which I don't really want to go into those things again. These classes are only supposed to be positive, and I hope that was sort of positive. I mean, my purpose is not to show that everybody else is wrong, and just to give you a new picture of what's right. Okay, here we go. Let's look from the overview. Here is the overview of the temple. This is what's called Ezrat Yisrael. This is where the people would come. Ezrat Nashim, it's called. And in it was divided. There were four rooms on the side, and this was for storing things, for doing things. This is for where the Nazir would bring us offerings. Nazir is a person that he swore off drinking wine, etc. When they would bring their offerings and boil it, etc. like that, they had to boil. And this is the Shemanim where they had kept the oil, and this is where they kept the Metzora, people that had Sorat, where they would come when they were doing the ritual to be cleaned up, and this is where they kept the wood for the altar. Okay, then you went in to, there were steps here. You went in, you up the steps, and now this is the area of there were some sacrifices that were sacrificed here, what was called the Kodesh Kadeshim, but then the Kodesh, regular holy, but holy of holy sacrifices like the Ola and those things, they were sacrificed here. Here there were these pins or whatever to tie the animal down and to slaughter it. This is called the north side. This is the north side, Safon. This is the north side of this, right? And the Holy Temple, this is east and this is west. So when you're walking to the west. I was even in synagogues where they put the Aron HaKodesh on the west. They pray toward the west. All synagogues pray toward the east. But they say that the Shekhinah is in the west because that's how it was in the temple. So they've got a good point. Regular religious synagogues, they do. There was one right across from 770. Okay, so then you go into what's called the area of the Kohanim. This is called of the Kohanim. And here's where they were slaughtering. This is the Beit HaMikdash. Here's the altar. And there's a ramp that goes up to the altar. The altar was like officially like 42 amos, which 42 amos is like, 50 feet, something like that. 50 feet, 50 by 50. And then there was a ramp that went up to it. But that we haven't gone into the Holy and the Holy of Holies yet. This is where the parts of the animals were burned up. And where the blood was spilled also. The blood was spilled. There were also two spigots over here, one for wine. Every offering had wine, came off with it, the animal. And also on the holiday of Sukkot, they poured water here. There was also another spigot for water. Then the Kohanim, before they went in to serve, every day they would wash their hands. Really, they would wash their hands and their feet. They would put their right hand on the right foot and wash, and then the left hand on the left foot and the wood. And this was a special cure. It said that King Solomon built it in the first temple. So they would wash their hands and their feet, which was a necessary thing. They had to do it before going into serve. Then they would go up the steps, and they would go into a pre-room, which there was nothing there, which is called the ulam. This was not in the tabernacle. Everything didn't have that. And then they went into a place called the Heichal. Now, in the Heichal, that's called the Heichal. This is also called the Holy. In the desert, it was called the tent of meeting. This is where God would speak to Moses from here. He would speak to him. Moses would stand here, and God would speak to him from the Holy of Holies. And on this side over here, on the left side, this is being recorded. Let me just see this. Yeah, on this side was the candelabra that we talked about, the menorah that we had that sort of warped picture of, and then in the middle was a small altar which was made of gold. That was the incense altar. In the first and second temples, this was made of stone. In the tabernacle, it was coated with copper. The tabernacle was what accompanied the Jews out when in the desert for 40 years, 39 years. They built it 1 year after they left Egypt. It was completed. 49. And then when they were in Israel for another 440 years, when they went to different places, Gilgal and Shiloh and Nob and Gibon, these different places, 440 years, the tabernacle accompanied this. This is what King Solomon built. He built the first temple. First temple stood for 410 years. So here we have Teichel. This is where every morning the Kohanim, they would light the Kohen would go in and light the menorah. There was incense that was in the middle. And then there was what's called the face bread. There was a table that had 6 shelves, 6 layers. On each layer, there was 2 loaves of bread. We'll see if we can get a picture. I mean, there's such how do you say, a flood of improper pictures over here of what was going on that it's very confusing. It takes a lot of time to sift through them. And then when you get them, you lose them. Here, I just had one, and I pressed some wrong button. Okay. And here in the Devir, this is called the Heichal, and this is the Devir Kodshecha, Devir. That's the Holy of Holies. And that was a place where no one went the whole year, except once a year, the high priest would go in for a few minutes, how long it was, and he would burn incense there, and etc. Good. You see here that it's more complicated than what I talked about. There were different rooms over here, etc., on the sides, but that's the general overview we want of the. Also, this was elevated a little bit. If you look from the side, you see that the whole thing went up. It went up like steps. We had a picture of that before, but I don't know where it is. All right, let's go back to the laws. Ready? Let's go. Do this? Okay. Let's try this one. Here we go. Where does this come from? Okay. And then what's this? Oh, these are letters from the Rebbe. Okay. Yes, we did this. We did the second temple. Second temple was we went through that. The structure, we did that. You want we do this? Yeah. Temple Mount, Sanhedrin. The high. Right, want to do it this way? Should we do this one here? Let's see what's it. I think it's the same thing. I think it's the same language. Yeah, it's the same language. Okay, so let's do this. Maybe it's a little bit easier. Let's make it bigger. Can we make it bigger? Let's try. Oh, there we go. All right, we have to hold the temple in awe. Okay, the great altar, the big altar, that's what we had over here, right? That's this. That's here, big altar. Big altar. It was made of stone. It was for the burnt offerings, animals, birds. There was also flour baked into matzot. There was 4 different types of matzot that were unleavened bread, unleavened, and pourings of wine. And like I said, on Yom Sukkot, they poured water there also as well. On the top of the great altar, there were three fires. One was for the daily offerings, one was to provide full coals for burning on the incense, and one was just to do the commandment of always having a fire on the altar. So if you looked on the altar, let's go back to the picture over here. On this altar, there were three fires. I don't know, maybe I'll find a better picture and we can see if it is. Now, you have to understand something. All of this was God commanded it. This is not the Kohanim. They sat and they had a big, meeting, and they said, "Let's do like this. Let's drive the people crazy." What do you say? Let's make three. Let's make it that if you pour the blood on the wrong place, then it's disqualified. And it says, that's a great idea. Well, that's not so. God told everybody this is exactly what you have to do. This is a very important point of Judaism, that God has exact rules. Exact rules. Why? Because this world is very important. This world is very important. If you didn't do these exact rules, you didn't go to hell. It doesn't say in the Torah. It says you didn't do what God wanted. You missed the point. Serving God is the greatest reward there could possibly be. So God is giving as many commandments as we can in order to do exactly what he wants with every aspect of our being. I mean, we're being created by God all the time. So a person should say, well, how can I repay God for creating me? I'm thinking, I want to go to heaven. I want more. But how can I dare to even think about that? God is creating me. I owe him everything. So give me, the more you give me, the more I can express my gratitude to you. Listen, there's other people that don't like to get, I know people that don't like to pay debts back. I know people, religious people. It's not a nice thing to say, but they borrow money. They don't pay it back. They don't feel they have to repay debts. Maybe you know somebody like that. I'm sure that it goes across the world, the religion. It cuts through all races of this. There's people that don't pay back their debts. They don't pay their debts. And what happens to them? Absolutely nothing. Right? If it's a small debt, nobody cares. Maybe somebody gets mad at them, maybe not. It's the same thing. They don't want to pay their debt. For sure, they don't want to pay their debts to God. Right? What happens if you don't pay your debts back to God? Nothing. Nothing. But you're not a man. You lost your how do you say your conscience. You're a form of man. You're like an animal. Right? Animal has no the conscience that bothers him if he doesn't, another animal gives him a bone, it doesn't pay him back with it. Okay, so the great altar of the temple was a very exact place. It can never be changed. This place is so holy that even non-Jews recognize its holiness, and never have there's been put an idol on that spot. The great altar was built, that's this altar we're talking about on the outside here, this. Where is it? The big altar. Maybe I'll get another picture of it, but I don't want to go around. Somehow or other, this must have been a class that I gave because I see my picture over here, but I don't. Okay. Anyway. So this altar was an exact place, and there had to be three prophets that came up to tell where the place of the altar was exactly, and another to verify it, and another one to say that you can make sacrifices on it. As it says around my mind, maybe we'll get to that. Let's see. Says the altar was on very holy ground. It's the same place where our father Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac. It's the same place where earlier, about 400 years earlier, Noah made his offerings to God after the flood. And even Adam, which Adam was like 2,000 years something before Noah, around 2,000. No, not 2,000, 1,500 years before Noah. Adam also made his first offerings to God there. Our sages tell us that this is the same place that God took the earth from which he created man, the human being. And the altar of the third temple will be on the same place. Some people say that where the Arabs built the Dome of the Rock, and that's not the same place. That is a different place. There was Rabbi Lev Benoni, he passed away a few years ago, but he had a whole... Okay, large amounts of wood were used for the fire on the great altar. The Kohanim that could not serve in the temple, for some reason, they were either too old or whatever, so their job was they would check the wood for worms or whatever before we went to the altar. This they did in a chamber, which is called the wood room. Here, let's see, remember let's see, we have a picture. Here, this is called Lishkat Eitzim, the department of wood. That's what they would do. Okay, now we have the kior. The kior was a large vessel full of water used by the Kohanim to wash their hands and their feet before they began the service. This usually had two taps, faucets, but later was redesigned. It was called a Bait HaMikdash, that it had 12 taps. This enabled the 12 priests who participated in the daily offering to wash their hands and feet before they began the temple service. Here we got the picture already. Here, the Chiyur, there it is, before they went into serve. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll take a break for today. Then there's the small golden altar. Maybe we'll have two. The small golden altar. The small altar was made of pure gold, and it was for the offerings of the sweet-smelling incense that had 11 ingredients in it. We'll see. Maybe let's fish around. Maybe I can be lucky and get a picture of it. The menorah was made of pure gold. It had 3 feet. The menorah, 3 feet, 7 straight branches, and each branch there were 3 upside-down cups. Near the base was another cup, bringing it to 22 cups altogether, exactly equal to the number of aleph base in the Hebrew alphabet. There were also 9 flowers and 11 egg-shaped bulbs decorating the menorah. The flowers were a symbol of the world's potential for growth. The bulbs were the sign of the infinite circle of spiritual pleasure. The menorah was lit by the Kohen, god of the high priest, every day. That's not right. The Kohen was not lit by the high priest. It was lit by any priest. Any priest could do it every day toward the evening. Interesting. It's not any priest could do it. All of the flames in the menorah faced the central lamp. This was called the Western lamp. Rambam has a little different opinion. The lamp was the first one lit every day. Near the evening, it would burn the whole entire night, and in the morning, it would use to be recognized the next day. This was a sign that the whole world, that God dwelt among the Jewish people. So let's see if we can find a picture of the golden altar and the menorah, maybe even more. Here, ready? Let's go. Let us fish around. See here, except for being this. Okay, there's a lot of things that are not right. The cups are upside down. Rambam makes them upside down, that the narrow part is on the top. In any case, it had all these designs that there were flowers and cups. I can't really rely on these pictures too much. What can you do? Here, let's see. Maybe this is a better. Is this no? On the side. Why does he insist? Why does he insist on making it? Okay, let's see. Nah, not good pictures. Here, see, it stood on three legs. Here it's a different legs. Okay, I'm telling you, this is very, very frustrating, because you try to give a class and there's all these really not correct pictures. See, they're supposed to be pulls on these things. I gotta go to another site. What can we do? I guess we need Mashiach to well, here's one thing they got right. At least they put the poles on this side, right? But like we said, it's a little bit too high. It's supposed to be 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, and 2.5. Okay. I'm not going to donate money. Here, let's see. What are we going to do? Let's go to this one. This one, temple. This is the same thing. Well, last year, I remember I got lucky. And I got some good pictures. See, they've inundated the thing with all these wrong pictures. What can we do? Okay, let's try it one more time, okay? Get it one more. Here, temple, pictures of the temple vessel diagram. Is this it? Same thing. That's what we had before. All right, I'll try to find some bigger pictures. 3 vessels of the temple. What is this? See, a lot of these things, the church shoves this in, and so you can't really rely on it. It's the same thing we had before. All right, that is today's class. Instead of wasting more time and looking around, I'll find a good place to find the pictures. And at least we have learned today what the general form of the temple, the outer altar, the inner altar, the place of the laver where they wash their hands, and the place of the menorah, and the face bread. Show the face bread is pretty interesting. Face bread and the ark, and how the ark looked like. And a general sort of overview of the purpose of the Holy Temple. And yeah, Okay, good. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming.